It's my great pleasure to be here with you today to share a few thoughts about the talent that we have here, about the future academics and researchers in this country. And I have to say, I just finished moderating the session prior to lunch, and I can't tell you how pleased I was to hear the brilliant work that is being done by students. And what I want to talk to you about today is about the importance of your perspective in the academy. The importance of the perspective of McNair scholars, more specifically, to the work that we do in the scientific community to advance the body of knowledge, to use that knowledge to improve society in a variety of ways, whether it's in education, whether it's in the sciences, whether it's in medicine. We need that perspective, and I'll tell you why I think that perspective is particularly important. I know certainly growing up for me, I never appreciated or realized, for a variety of reasons, just how useful my perspective, growing up in a background that is immigrant, working class, first generation in my family to graduate from high school, college, and certainly pursue a graduate degree. Because of the challenges that we face in society, for those of us who have those social origins, and because of existing discrimination and prejudice that oftentimes can discourage, it can act as a significant barrier for us, that we fail to see, to actually recognize how much we in fact we have to contribute to society, but more importantly to the academic profession. So oftentimes when I talk to audiences, I always sort of characterize myself as being the product of academic outreach programs. That, if you look at my credentials, some people might think that they're impressive. And I think in American society, we tend to think that individual accomplishments are the result solely of individual effort. And I work very hard to dispel that myth because I think it's a dangerous way to think about the educational progress of working class and ethnic minority youth, because it prevents us from recognizing significant barriers that we face in our pursuit of our educational goals. So what I say, when people sort of are in awe of, the things that I've been able to accomplish, my response is, there is no way I could have done any of these things had it not been for academic outreach programs and mentors who took an active role in shaping my educational experiences. So as early as elementary school, I benefited from academic outreach programs. I was in a program that I believe is no longer in existence called MESA. And MESA stands for Math, Engineering, and Science Achievement. So in middle school, during the summers, we would take a bus and actually come here to Harvey-Mudd College, just 2 blocks up the street. And we would take summer courses where we would work on our math skills and our writing skills. But early, in my educational experience in middle school, I had educators, I had college professors telling us that we were college material. And that was important and that was significant because it set that high expectation. Now, oftentimes, I think we fail to understand just how important the impact is of someone, an educator, telling a student that they think that they're high caliber and that they're capable of everything and anything. Sometimes as educators, we don't appreciate just how powerful that can be, how powerful an influence we can have on our students if we just say those words of encouragement. They may be trivial to us in articulating them, but they're not trivial to the students that hear them. Believe me, it stays with them. It certainly has stayed with me. I mean, the fact that I'm talking to you about words of encouragement that were said to me in middle school. So I continued on that. I mean, that sort of really, helped me to really focus on my efforts on accomplishing that image of myself in the future. And so when I got to high school, again, I was fortunate to benefit from a trio program, and it was the Upward Bound program that was, I would say, singularly responsible for me ending up at one of the most prestigious selective liberal arts schools in this country, which is Pomona College, just down the street. The fact was that when I was a senior, I didn't really want to apply to Pomona College because I thought, extra essays and I have to do all this extra work. I don't really want to go through that. I mean, what a pain in the butt. I mean, my tutor was a Pomona College student, my Upward Bound tutor, and this is the Upward Bound program that is based out of Harvey-Mudd College. It's still there. And so they worked with Gary High School, which is where I went to school. And so they paired me up with a tutor, and it was a student from Pomona College. And he just insisted. He was unrelenting. He went to my house. He talked to my parents. This guy, I couldn't shake him. And I said, okay, fine. I'll apply. I'll do the extra work, and I really didn't do a good job on that essay. And he said, this is no good. This needs to be 10 times better. I said, great, more work. And so I just grudgingly, I wouldn't have known. This wasn't something that I was familiar with. My father has a second grade education. My mother never set foot in school. She doesn't know what that experience is like, which, when I was growing up and I would tell people that, they couldn't wrap their head around it. It's just so unusual to just have a parent that never had formal education. So for us, not only was formal education not something that we were familiar with within our family, but the fact that the American educational system can be so complex that for them it was very difficult. So it really took this persistent and at the time annoying tutor to help me put together this application that I think essentially ultimately put me on this trajectory where I am now speaking to you as a university professor here at CGU. So the Upward Bound program was, a tremendous influence. The summer program, the internship program that we did. And so I went to Pomona College, and it was a struggle. It was very difficult. I went to a school, like many of us who are working class or ethnic minority, to a school where we don't always have the best academic preparation. And a story I like to tell about my academic preparation coming to Pomona College is when I came to Pomona College, we all had to take a writing exam to see if our writing skills were up to par. And my only experience writing essays was my junior year in high school. In my honors English, I took honors in AP, so I was on that track. But in those courses, we really didn't develop our writing skills. So I went 4 years of high school, and the longest essay I ever wrote was a 5-page essay on the play Macbeth. And we took 3 months to write that. And that was the longest piece of writing I did. And so I come to Pomona College, where you're writing 5-page papers every week. You're writing a 15 to 20-page midterm paper for every class, every semester, and then a final on top of that. So needless to say, I flunked that writing exam. And I had to take 2 writing intensive courses my freshman year. And that was a stigma, because I was one of the few students, and a lot of us who were in those courses guess what? We were, ethnic minority, first generation college, because we went to those schools where we didn't have that strong academic preparation. So that was certainly a challenge. But the McNair Scholars Program and the Upward Bound Program were the resources that really helped me to begin to develop those skills. And oftentimes, when we talk about going to a PhD program and becoming a professor, it's a scary, idea. We think, like, wow, that's just so much work and that's so difficult. And the way that I characterize it is just building a set of skills. And anyone can learn skills. You're not born with it. It's not inherent. It's something that's developed. And certainly those programs did that for me. The McNair Scholars Program helped me to develop my research skills, and to the point when I applied to graduate school, I already had a publication in a peer-reviewed journal. And that pretty much was a foot in the door in a PhD program. If you're published, before you even apply, that's money in the bank. That's gold. That's just impressive. A lot of graduate students, a lot of PhD recipients graduate without even having a single publication. Now, if you as a McNair Scholar have one already before you apply, that's great. But it was in that project, in my McNair Scholars Research Project, that I began to appreciate the contribution that I could bring to the academy, the contribution that I could bring to my discipline, which is psychology and education. And the reason why I want to highlight that for you is because there are pressing social and educational issues that we need people working on solutions. And in order to come up with good solutions, or in order to come up with good ideas about how to solve some of these issues, we need people who can understand these complex problems from a variety of different perspectives. And unfortunately, in the academy, still to this day, that perspective is very limited. There's not much diversity in that perspective. Folks in the academy who are working on these issues tend to be from very similar backgrounds. They tend to be predominantly white, predominantly middle or upper class, and so they have lived that particular socioeconomic experience. So they see that world from that particular perspective. But in order to understand the complexity of these issues, we need people who can come to the table to tackle those issues from a different perspective, from a perspective that the people sitting around the table can't see, are not able to see, because they haven't been shaped by those social experiences. And so I began to realize that when I was working on my McNair Scholars Project, which was a project that was looking at the experiences of children who translate for their parents, which now in the academic literature is known as cultural brokers. And the way that I came about this topic was I was having a conversation with my mentor. I was stressing. I was really starting to freak out because I thought I need to come up with a research topic. I can't come up with anything. It seems like everybody's already done everything. How do I pick something that's new and contributes to the body of knowledge? And so we were having sort of tossing ideas around, and I casually mentioned to him that I translate for my parents, that I had gone, that they were in the process of buying a home, and we were meeting with the mortgage people and the real estate people, and that I had to help translating. And he said, why don't you do your study on that? And it never dawned on me that this experience that I completely took for granted, I never thought twice about it, that could be a topic of study, that could be a topic of empirical research. And so, we started talking about it and coming up with sort of the research design and the questions and the methodology and the instruments. And all of a sudden, I had a study that could help us to understand social and cognitive development in children and young adults from a perspective that nobody had examined before. Nobody had thought about it. In fact, the prevailing notion at the time was that translating for your parents was actually a bad thing for kids and children. That it was a burden on them. That it was, the stressor, right? I mean, that was the pervasive notion. And it was so pervasive, in fact, that the state of California, passed a law saying that if you serve Spanish-speaking people, that you have to have someone that can translate. And the rationale for that was because there are children who are being, quote-unquote, abused by being placed in these translating situations, right? And I think it's great that, that the state requires that we have those resources. I think it's important. But more importantly, from a research perspective, I thought, is that really the case? Let's empirically study this and figure out if in fact this is a bad thing or if it's a good thing. Well, I had some hypotheses. I had read the literature, sort of scoured, all the articles and things have been written about it. And I hypothesized that in fact translating for your parents would have a positive impact on cognitive development and achievement, because it helps you to maintain a high level of bilingualism, which we've known for decades is associated with higher cognitive functioning, and which then translates into better achievement and things like that. But also, the fact that you're interacting with adults. Imagine a 12, 13, 14-year-old interacting with adults on a regular basis, sort of relating to them as equals. Guess what? They develop good public speaking skills. They develop social self-efficacy. They learn sort of the nuances of communicating with people on an equal level who are adults, who most of their peers do not. So in this study, we came to find all of these things that went against these common misconceptions about cultural brokering. So I used that example because today I heard in the panel that I was sitting in a lot of research questions that approach existing research dilemmas, existing social issues, from a perspective that it was clear to me was shaped by their own social and personal experiences. And I felt that one of the reasons why these studies were so compelling was precisely because of that. Because they were approaching research questions from a novel way. And I think sometimes we fail to appreciate that because we think, oh, I'm not that special. I'm just doing it, and I'm just a lowly undergraduate or graduate. But don't underestimate just how important that perspective and that approach to studying social and educational issues can be as a contribution to science. And we need that. We need all of you to pursue that route, to continue doing your work, to persist with these projects, to see them to full fruition. And by that I mean submitting them to an academic journal. And there's so many things that you can learn in that process. And I'll be talking more about that in the afternoon during a workshop that I'll be discussing that. But you develop all of these skills that I mentioned that are required to do well in a PhD program. You're beginning to develop those. You're starting to develop those competencies, and trust me, they're going to go a long way. Yes, it requires a certain level of perseverance and commitment. I don't want to kid you. This isn't an easy process. If it was, everyone would be doing it, and we wouldn't be making such a big deal about it, to begin with. But it is. It is an elite group that ends up sort of doing this kind of work. And I have to tell you, I've been now in the academy for 6 years, and it's lonely here. I mean, there do not see many people that share my ethnic and socioeconomic background. We need more people that can bring that perspective, that talent, that resource. I mean, intellectually, you all are an important resource. And in the academy, in the scientific community, we're severely lacking in that. We need that. Especially because we have some very pressing social, medical, political, and economic issues that need solving. I don't have to tell you about all of that. I mean, I'm sure just by reading the news, by your intimate knowledge of the academic research as part of the work that you're doing as McNair scholars, that there are all these issues for which we need the best and the brightest. And the best and the brightest that can bring a new perspective that currently is not there. So your experiences growing up, whether it's in rural communities where going to college may be sort of the rare event, or if you're in a working class community where most kids don't go to college, if you come from that perspective, or if you are of immigrant background and first in your family to go to college, that perspective can be a tremendous asset to the scientific community. And so that I hope that in your conversations with your colleagues here, and hearing these great ideas and these research presentations, that you take this momentum with you and begin to develop or continue to develop those concrete steps to get to the PhD, to get to doctoral studies. It takes careful planning, it takes perseverance, it takes the support of all of you here who are in the capacity to support students, whether you're faculty, whether you're staff, whether you're academic outreach professionals. It's that collective work that ultimately is going to ensure that this talent here comes to the academy, stays in the academy, and helps to find solutions to these pressing issues that we need your talent for. So I leave you with that. I look forward to speaking to many of you about your research and your experiences. If I can be a resource to any of you, I'm happy to do that. I feel that we are all part of the same McNair community. I have a great appreciation for the process, and I feel that at this point it is my obligation to help those that are coming up in the process. I mean, there were people who did that for me. That the reason I'm here is precisely because of those trailblazers and because of those mentors. And I certainly try to do that. We I think all of us in the academy who come from those backgrounds feel that sense of obligation in various ways. And I think if you talk to faculty, they'll tell you something similar. And so don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask questions, to ask, if you don't know or if you're not familiar with part of the process. I mean, that's what it takes. And it really does take a certain kind of perseverance to do that. What I tell people is get comfortable with being a pest. I'm sure with my teachers and my professors, I was that student that was always a pest. I was always asking way too many questions, was always emailing or visiting and asking all of these things. But that's what gets it done. And some of us, we don't know how exactly to help you unless you come specifically. And I know that can be a daunting and scary thing, I know it was for me. I mean, coming from a Latino immigrant background, for us, we are socialized to revere educators and sort of put them on a pedestal. And it's not until a few years ago that I could bring myself to address my McNair mentor by his first name. Even when we were colleagues here, when I started, I couldn't bring myself to call him other than Professor Buriel, and he said, you got to start calling me Ray. That's, and I couldn't, because I revered him and I respected him. And sometimes when we do that, we feel that, oh, well, I don't want to bother so-and-so because they're really busy, or, it's too trivial. Don't think that. Don't let that stop you from asking big questions, little questions, everything in between, because that's what it's going to take. And so we will continue to play our part to support you, and I hope that you will take my advice and be persistent, be proactive, and that will take you to where we would like you to be, which is here in the Academy, working alongside of us. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
And we want to thank Will for coming out and speaking to us and giving us some words of inspiration. So thank you very much.